Welcome back to the Changemaker Podcast. I'm your host, Deke Copenhaver. My guest today is Tripp Bowden. Tripp is a former Augusta National caddie, the first full-time white caddie in the history of the elite private club. He's also a former collegiate golfer and an alum of Augusta University and a former copywriter, first with McCann Erickson, New York, and later with his own company, Creative Wizards. Tripp is the author of the New York Times praised Freddy and Me, Life Lessons from Freddie Bennett, Augusta National's legendary caddy master, and all the memorable rounds, golf adventures, and misadventures from Augusta National to Cypress Point and beyond. A frequent speaker at prominent golf clubs and sports venues across America and beyond, Tripp lives with his wife, Fletch, and children, Ari B. and Holly Mack in Augusta, Georgia. Tripp, welcome to the show, my friend.
Welcome to the Changemaker Podcast, hosted by Deke Copenhaver. Deke is the author of The Changemaker, a Forbes publishing book that has reached #1 on Amazon on multiple occasions and in multiple categories like management skills and total quality management. During this podcast, Deke interviews exceptional change-making leaders. Deke currently operates Copenhaver Consulting, where he helps local governments and other public organizations maximize their potential. He's also a sought-after public speaker. We hope that the Changemaker has an impact on you today and that you find takeaways that make you a better leader in your life. Now, here's Deke.
Great to be here, man. Appreciate it.
Well, so you and I share in common the fact that we're both authors, and you've written several books, but Freddy and Me is really sort of was the flagship for you. So for our listeners, talk a little bit about that and your journey to become a caddy at the Augusta National, because just in doing a little research on you, you didn't even like golf as a kid.
No, I hated it. I thought it was a stupid-ass game that took up too much of my dad's time. And when I would, he had free time, he wanted to play golf because he was a doctor and trying to make his way, and he loved the game, and I hated it because he loved it, and he wouldn't spend time with me. I wanted to fish or kick a soccer ball, anything, but play golf. And actually, my first set of clubs he gave me, and I took him out in the street in Dorchester on Westwood Road and banged him up on the cement and got my ass kicked. Deservedly so. That was my first experience with golf. But then along comes Freddie, and just a quick version is he asked me, he says, I don't know you don't like golf, but I hear you like to fish. And I said, I love to fish. And I absolutely loved it. I had a Zebco rod and reel, and I was ready to go. And he said, well, let's go fishing at the club. And I was too naive to know what the club meant. He didn't mean Country Club. He meant Augusta National. And this is the summertime, so we go out to Augusta National and fishing at the par 3 and just catching them hand over fist. And he said, let me show you something. I'm going to show you the golf grip. And I said, okay. We're fishing with cane poles that he got from the bamboo on number 4. And it's a one-finger grip like Hogan teaches. Yeah. And I pull out a big old brim, and I said, this is golf? He said, that's golf, man. That's all you need to know. I said, I love golf. and that's how I got into it, very inadvertently.
Well, it's interesting. Your book is so well written, and it's such an easy read. And I love the humor and everything you use. But I was thinking today, it's almost, and don't take this in the wrong way, it's kind of a love letter in some ways. I mean, it's you can just see how much you love and respect Freddie. And I was thinking on it on the way down here, and the show is on leadership, but I'm in executive coaching now. And really, life coaches have become such a big thing now. But Freddie really was your life coach.
Oh, no question about it. And the way he went about things, he was so damn funny. But it was also, it was subtle. And I didn't realize until much later in life how much he did for my life. And I like to say he didn't, tell the story of my life. He edited it. Yeah. He made sure that I was going to go in the right direction, and often without, pushing me or shoving me, or just by showing me. And watching him, the way he reacted or interacted with other caddies, other people, be they a member, be they a Arnold Palmer, be they whoever they are. By the way, I'm wearing his pants.
Oh, really?
And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it didn't matter who you were. He treated everybody the same. Yeah. And he was not in awe of anybody, even though you could tell people were in awe of him. Yeah. But just the respect that he had for everyone and the respect they had for him. And his favorite line was, well, it wasn't a line. It was an adage. It was what he did. It was his mantra. It was like, let me see what I can do. Yeah. If anybody had a problem or needed something, he'd just say, let me see what I can do. He could always figure stuff out, and he could always do it.
Well, that to me, and it's funny, I had a speaking engagement a couple years ago, and somebody said, what's at the core of your book? And I said, it's that in leadership positions, even in politics, you can treat everybody with dignity and respect and maintain your character and integrity and still be successful. And the guy looked at me and said, well, I don't think that's possible. I'm like, well, that's the way I've proceeded for 9 years. But I think that's Freddie truly was a leader of men. And I think that stemmed from, as you say, true leaders, in my opinion, don't put themselves above others. And so that treating everybody, from any walk of life with dignity and respect is a mark of a great leader.
It's interesting you say that, because I've obviously read your book and I loved it. And that's exactly what Freddie was. And I was thinking, funny you said that on your way down, I was thinking the same thing, that what is a true leader? I mean, if you know as another person that you're cared for and loved by the other person, there's nothing you can't do.
No.
You'll follow that person anywhere.
No.
So that's a great way to say it. It's a perfect way to say it.
Just into little logistics here. So you were the first white caddy, full-time caddy at the Augusta National.
I was.
How did that happen?
I graduated with a degree in English. And I didn't want to teach because I'm too much big of a bullshitter to teach. Looking back, I probably would have had fun. But so with my degree in English and my minors in philosophy and psychology, I decided to just smoke cigarettes and drink beer all summer. And I knew I couldn't play pro because when I was playing in a tournament down in Florida with a guy named Nolan Hinkey, he was the number 4 guy, and so was I. Nolan Hinkey, by the way, turned pro, and he went on the tour, and he won a tournament.
Yeah.
He shoots 67. I shoot 74, and I'm like, that's all I got. So I got stomped by the number 4 player in Florida, and I said, I'm not going to waste my dad's money on the mini tour. So I was pretty lost, actually. And Pop, not too proud of me at that point, he said, why don't you call Freddie and see if he's got any ideas for you. And I'd actually caddied out there some in college, like for beer money and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then Freddie said, why don't you come out here and caddy, like full-time for real? And I got kind of quiet, and he said, you think you're too good for it? I said, no, I never thought about being a caddy. And then next thing I know, it's October, and I'm out there walking those hills, and he put me out with the best caddies out there, that guys like Melvin and Pork Chop and people that had actually won the Masters before, Skinny.
Mm-hmm.
And they taught me, because they knew I wasn't out there trying to take their job. I was out there to learn, and it's an art.
Mm-hmm.
And as Freddie often said, you don't read the greens, you remember them, which is so true. I mean, they do the same thing every time. But those guys taught me everything, and I became a damn good caddy thanks to them.
It's funny. I was playing out there with my dad, and he was gracious enough to take my wife Melissa out there. And anytime anybody says they're going to play the Augusta National, I'm just like, listen to your caddy. Do whatever your caddy says. So I can't remember which hole we're on, but I look over, and Melissa, my wife, for listeners who don't know, she's a very strong-willed lady. But
Yes, she is. That's
so
a good thing.
She's shaking off the caddy, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, well, I was right. I hit the right club anyway. I'm like, you don't go to the Augusta National and shake off the caddy. Did anybody ever shake you off?
The chairman shook me off of the lady I was caddying for. They were making a big deal. I won't mention any names, but they're making a big deal with Cougarans. The guy was from South Africa. And the wife is a pretty good player, and she took up golf to be with her husband. Mr. Cougaran is what we used to call him. And she's having trouble to get out of the bunker. So I teach her bunker shots. And all of a sudden, she's hitting out of the bunker perfectly. She starts schooling her husband. So the chairman walks over after a while and goes, this is not good. She's going to beat him, and he's going to be pissed, and he's not going to do the deal with me. So he says, did she ask you to help you? And I said, yes, sir. And the chairman smoked. He walked over and went, don't anymore. I said, yes, sir. So no more lessons for her. And she was like looking at me like, no more lessons? And I was like,
that is hilarious. But I remember I was out there one time, and I had a caddy that clubbed me perfectly. I mean, everything. And I said, what's your handicap? He said, oh, I don't play golf.
A lot of them don't.
Yeah. That is amazing. But one of the things that you talk about is that Freddie didn't see color. And that's something that, with racial issues and everything these days, that for 9 years in office, that was a passion of mine, was really to help heal the racial divide in Augusta. But and I know you're colorblind as well, but what was it like to be in that environment, a relatively, affluent white kid with, with older gentlemen that are caddies that have been there for years, but you were not in your element. You were outside your comfort zone.
It was a little different, but I did have a little bit of advantage being that kind of person in that situation is I kind of grew up out there. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them were familiar with me.
Yeah.
They were definitely quite surprised what I was doing there. Having a college degree and being a college golfer, and all of a sudden I'm showing up in a caddy uniform.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget the first day there. I guess we can say whatever we want.
Yeah.
We'll see. And I had to go to the bathroom real bad. I'm a morning, person, regimented, regulated kind of thing. And I go into the bathroom, and this is the old caddy house, the center block caddy house, which was an absolute shithole. And nothing like it is now. But it had great food. So I go in the bathroom, and there's no, stalls. There's no doors, like prison.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, this can't be right. I go to the next one. So there's no doors on the stalls. And so, well, you got to go, right? So got to go, and I see a newspaper on the ground, so I pick it up, and I'm reading it. And then there's Tip Light, who I used to work with during the tournament on the second hole, fixing divots and raking bunkers. And he goes, "Little Doc, what's going on? What you doing here?" And I'm like, trying to take a He's like, "Hey," he's just chatting away with me. And I'm like, I'm seriously trying to take care of business here, and you're just chatting away like it's old times. I said, I'll talk to you a little bit. And he's like, "No, we can talk now." I'm like, "No, we can't." I'm thinking this is going to be an interesting year. But it was great. It was magical to be out there for 5 seasons. And like I said, learned so much. And you talk about racial issues. So there were none, with me.
Yeah.
None at all. And then, like Freddie says, and it's in the book, like the Marines, you're either light green or you're dark green.
Yeah.
You're both green.
Yep.
And that's how he treated everybody, and there was never a single racial issue while I was there. Not a one.
Your dad, Joe, is an absolutely, he is a Renaissance man. He's an Episcopalian priest. He's a doctor. He's a musician. He's an artist. He's pretty much everything. He speaks Greek and Latin. So what an amazing man. But I think, my faith, I tell people, and I'm a Christian, I admit it and proudly admit it, but in the Bible, we're commanded to love our neighbor as ourselves. And that doesn't specify your black neighbor, your white neighbor, your rich neighbor, your poor neighbor. It's a command, not a request. I'm like, we're all neighbors. And I think that's, obviously the way Freddie looked at the world, you look at the world, but it's there's so much healing that can be done if everybody would just sort of take that mindset of getting beyond color.
That's a great point. I agree would say it. And that's the way Freddie was. There was no, like I said, no black, no white. You were just light green or dark green, and you might be a member, you might be a caddy, but you're a person that he cared about and respected, and would do anything in the world for you. That was the thing about Freddie. He would do anything in the world for you, even if you didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
And that's a hell of a gesture by
that's leadership too, And so what are some of the greatest lessons that Freddie taught you?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question.
You wrote a book about it.
Yeah, I wrote a book about it.
Read the book.
Yeah, read the book. Well, certainly to treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
Even though I think growing up, I had a lot of those lessons from my grandfather, who I think was a Christ figure. I think Freddie was a Christ figure, to be honest. And just the way he treated people and the way he commanded, I don't know, your reverence, because you knew that there's nothing he wouldn't do for you, so there's nothing you wouldn't do for him.
Yeah.
And as you say in your book, you lead by example and actions, not words, even though you wrote a book with words about leading without words. But just, he had such an aura to him. Mm-hmm. Freddie would walk into the room, or you walk into his office, and he just commanded your attention, and you had to hang on his every word. And he's also, like I said, he's funny as hell. But I guess it's such a, I don't know, it's kind of like a microcosm of everything that's right in the world.
Yeah.
With Freddie Bennett. And I'm sure there were problems that maybe I missed, or troubles that I missed while I was there, but you never noticed them. He just had a way of solving everything so quickly. But it was rare. There was never a fight in the caddy house. What caddy house didn't have fights? Yeah. There was never any unrest or.
So it was not like Caddyshack.
No. No, it wasn't. But it was just we had such a respect for Freddie that all of us. Obviously we were all very different personalities, and there was there was weed smoking, there was even crack and stuff like that, but not under his watch.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always done on your own time kind of stuff. It was, I mean, there were certain caddies that showed up. In fact, this is a good story. Donahue, they called him Delta. He loved to drink and it showed. And he would show up every morning. He called me his doctor. When we would go out in groups in the morning, I'd have a cooler full of beer in the back of my Trans Am. And he would drink 2 Crazy Horses, 40 ounce, and go out on the course. Well, one day he showed up just absolutely plowed. And he had a bag on his shoulder. He was like swerving around like this. Fred said, that ain't going to work. So put another bag on his shoulder. He said, yours balances the scales of justice. And he went out and carried double.
Yeah.
18 holes, crunk as hell.
Well,
he's a great caddy, though.
You know, and I think sometimes in my life, I mean, I have an epiphany, and so we were raised in the South where you did hear racial epithets, and there's racism in the South. There's still racism every place. It's just a fact. But I talked about this in my book. When I was working for then Nations Bank in Atlanta, I was cramming for the Series 7. And my best friend at work was a guy named Mark Jones, who happened to be black, but, you know, I just saw him as a cool guy that was fun to hang out with. But so we shared a hotel room for a week for cramming to pass the Series 7 exam. And one night after dinner, he just said something that was so poignant to me that I think Freddie would appreciate. He said, you know, Deke, if my skin was white, I'd be you. And if your skin was black, you'd be me. And so, but at that moment, I'm like, it made it not okay for people to use racial epithets around me. And it's almost like I didn't have to specifically tell people. It's that people just sort of picked up on, you know, not to do it. But I something like that. But just, I think one of the difficult things too is if we're not around and socialize with people that are different than us, you know, I'm like, how do you grow as a person if you're never around anybody that thinks differently, looks differently than you, comes from a different socioeconomic background? So I'm sure being a caddy at the National really broadened your worldview.
Oh, no question. No question. And it some things that I'd never realized, like growing up, but like we'd have breaks and go to lunch and like go to Chick-fil-A and it'd be me, a white guy, and 6 black guys. And the people looking at us like, what are y'all doing together?
Yeah.
But we had on a caddy suit, but so at least that associated us that way. But people were giving us the looks like, what are y'all doing together? And actually, we have a kid that we kind of adopted in a way. He was our neighbor, younger, and as he got older, he and I would go do stuff together and go into mostly white environments. And they're like, I mean, you get the looks, even though it's 2018 or 19. It's like, what are you 2 guys doing together?
Yeah,
something's up. I'm like, nothing's up. We're friends. I'm like a dad to him. What the hell?
Well, let me ask you this, because I mean, you've written not just Freddy and Me, you've written the Caddy's Cookbook, and you've written several books. But I just want to get your take on this, because so when I wrote my book, it's like any piece of art, any artist, not everybody's going to love it. You know, you put it out there, and you're gonna. And I was reading where somebody said that, you know, you were too overly jaunty or whimsical or something like that, which I think, you know, to me, it just, that's your voice, and I love it. But how do you handle, you know, if somebody doesn't like what you put out there in the world?
That's a great question. I think you have Dr. Evans. Walter Evans is your creative writing teacher at Augusta College. Mm-hmm. He smacks you down, and then you go, okay, I can take it now. Yeah, this is a cool story. I quite fancied myself as a freshman writer for the paper, the Bell Ringer, and I thought I was an American badass with a pen. And I take Dr. Evans' class. I don't know if you know of Dr. Evans.
I actually had him.
Oh, you had him?
Yeah.
Had a great laugh. Sorry, Walter. Dr. Evans. I never called you Walter. And I take his creative writing class thinking, okay, quick course, I'll just breeze through this. And first day of class, he's looking at the ledger there with everybody's name on it, the roll. And he reads everybody's name off, and then he throws it in the trash. And this one kid raises his hand and says, Dr. Evans, why'd you throw the roll in the trash? And he said, I know everybody's name now. And I don't take attendance, because if you don't come to my class, you're going to fail. He went, oh. He said, and by the way, your name is whatever. And then he went, boop, 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 boop. He named everybody in the class right away. I mean, just after just reading it once.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow, that's impressive. He said, I want everybody to write me a short story, turn it in tomorrow. We're done here. And he gets up and leaves. I said, okay, I can write a short story, you know, what I did last summer kind of thing. So I write this short story. And I put it on his desk the next day. He made everybody put it on his desk. He didn't come back pick it up. He had to put it on his desk. I put it on his desk. I said, "This is the best thing you ever read." And he went, "Oh, really?" Really? So the next day, he said, "Class, we got a special guest today going to read his story out loud." And I was like, "Oh, I wonder who that is." "Mr. Bowden, will you come to the front?" I said, "Sure." So I strolled up there and grabbed my short story, and I got a C- on the front of it, and it's covered in green and red ink with his commentary. I can hardly read the thing, and I'm just shaking like this. I'm like, this is awful. I sit back down, and this one kid had an F+ on his paper. And he said, he wrote a comment on there, "You do what you do very well." And he raised his hand. He said, "Dr. Evans, you gave me an F+ and said I do what I do very well." He said, "Yeah, that's true." He said, "You suck, but you're great at it." And I thought, oh my God. And about half the class dropped it. But Dr. Evans taught me so much about proper writing and getting out of your own way and letting your voice take over and try not to show off so much. Be who you are.
Yeah.
But don't say sentences and words just to say them. They got to have meaning.
But that's a thing about leaders too. I mean, your outfit. I'm like, you are who you are. You're authentic. And I think that's, that resonates with people. And you've really inside the Augusta area, but with the success of your books, you've established a name for yourself outside of the area.
Yeah, it's been a fun run. I've been able to talk at clubs all over America, some in Canada. I've spoken at Marion, Baltusrol. I mean, kind of you name it, I've been there. And and I always, even when they say you don't have to wear a coat or tie to talk, I said, no, of course I do. I gotta be who I am. And I kind of got this from, I guess, growing up with my dad. I mean, he would dress just like this, so he probably would have had on yellow pants and go see patients. He wouldn't have on the scrubs or anything. He'd dress up to go see them. I mean, he looked very dapper, and you look in his closet, and it's like, whoa, an Easter egg blew up. I remember, I can say anything, right? We can edit it out.
just not too bad.
Keep it clean. When I won the club championship, the men's club championship as a junior at Westlake, and one of the guys who was in the final group with me, an Irish fellow, and I'm blanking on his name. His son's name was Bobby. I think you knew Bobby.
Yep, Brendan Hayes.
That's him. And after the round was over, and I'm in the pro shop, but I'm in the back, and he can't see me. And he goes in and he goes, "Hey, Mark Darnell, I got big them Easter egg." And Mark goes, "He's right over there." He goes, "Yeah, look at him." Had on like blue socks, yellow shorts, pink shirt. That's just who I am,
Yeah.
You gotta be you.
Yeah, and that's, to me, it's like you say with Freddie or with you or people that are true leaders don't put on airs, and they can be themselves. They can, one of the reviews I was reading that spoke very highly of Freddy and Me is your self-deprecating humor. And that to me, if you're comfortable enough to laugh at yourself, that's a good character to have.
That's a great point. I think I got that from my grandmother. She was always kind of had that sort of humor, and I think you gotta. Well, there's something about they say can't take yourself too seriously, but I think you can take yourself very seriously, but you also got to look in the mirror and realize who you are. Yeah. I mean, I can't. I'm crappy with directions. I didn't. Actually, it's funny when we talk about going around speaking everywhere. I wanted it to be perfect, so I always had my notes. Even though I know you don't use notes when you speak. And then we did an event with the. I say we. I did an event with the Macallan Scotch down at Sea Island, and I had these notes. They were really good, I thought. It was a good speech, but I was reading it. And then we did a side event that evening, just telling stories. Yeah. So afterwards, we go down to the lodge, me and Graham, and he says, "You were so much better when you're just telling your stories." He goes, "Hand me your speech." Let me look at it. And I said, handed it to him. It's the only copy I had. Yeah. This is back before you really save stuff to computers and stuff. I just typed it out. And he goes, Choo. He throws it in the fireplace. I went, "Oh, my God." I reached the fireplace. It's all burning up. And I'm like, "Dude, that's my speech." He goes, "No, your speech is here, man." Yep. It's not on that paper. Ever since then, I just tell stories. And I'm not sure what's true anymore. I mean, in fact, this is good, too. Pop said, "Don't worry about it if it's true or not." He says, "Only people know that those stories are true. One of them's dead and the other one's you."
Well, I was at a Forbes event a number of years ago, and so I had to give – I tell people I give talks, not speeches. But this lady, Deborah Torres Patel, who I actually just spoke to recently, So she's this world-renowned speaker and speaking coach and everything. She's like in the Asian Hall of Fame for speakers. She was like the first woman. But so I have never had anybody critique me when I was speaking. And somebody said after I said that, they said, no, somebody's critiquing you every time you're speaking. But my knees were knocking. I got through it and everything. But so she made a really good point in public speaking that I've always taken with me, and I told her when I just spoke to her that I give her credit for this. With speaking, it's about connection, not perfection. And I'd say that's kind of life in general. But so you're a storyteller. I mean, you do it in your books, you do it in your life, you do it in your speeches. But I was doing a little research on you, and you said in order to tell good stories, you have to lock in on everything, and good storytelling is always from the heart.
I said that, or somebody said that?
You said that in an interview I read with you. See, I do my research.
You've done your homework.
Yeah.
Golly. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. When I start my talks, I always talk about, hating the game of golf and get my butt whooped and for scratching up the clubs. But then I talk about my career in golf. At Augusta College, I was freshman of the year. I was player of the year, which is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
As a senior, I was most improved. And that always gets a good laugh. And people realize that I'm not some kind of super stud or whatever golfer. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And that really, to me, I can relate to them that way. And a lot of the stuff I do when I do my talks, I tell stories that aren't in the book.
Yeah.
Obviously, some things shouldn't be in print, and we get Masters tickets. I don't want to get shot going to the mailbox in March. But laughter to me is huge.
Yeah.
And it's everything. And it's not, humor's not easy, and you certainly can't force it. But when I get people laughing, and every story I tell, with the exception of at the end about asking them who their Freddy is, it's funny, and you get a lot of laughs. So they're there laughing, having a good time, and the book is almost not immaterial, but it's kind of secondary. But then I'll personalize them too, and it's kind of interactive. I have them read off my inscription about asking who their Freddy is, and they get involved and they're part of it. It's not some guy they're just talking. They're going
yeah.
So it works out really well that way.
Well, I think good leadership stems from a want to help people too. And so telling your stories and asking at the end, who is your Freddy? I mean, it's pretty cool to think of how many people you've had a positive impact on their life through your book, through your speaking engagements. But it's that connection, just connecting with people. If you really want to help them, you got to connect with them. And laughter, as you say, is a great way to connect with people.
Most definitely. Well, I've had so many emails from people that had been at the talks, at the clubs, and one that really hit my heart and made me say, okay, this is why I'm doing this. This guy thought about who his Freddy was, and it was his coach from high school. This guy's in his 70s, and he just hopped on a plane and went down to see him, and he was on his deathbed and thanked him for being his Freddy. And I still choke up thinking about it. And I've had so many people saying. And you may not realize at the time, I'm like, who was your Freddy? And I say, well, if you can't think of your Freddy, who could be a Freddy for?
Yeah.
Just to be there for somebody. But so many people have said, God, my Freddy was so-and-so. And they just email me, because I'll just put my card in there, and they'll just email me randomly and just say, my Freddy was so-and-so. And then they tell me their story.
Yeah.
And they reached out to him. I hadn't talked to him in 20 years or 30 years or whatever it might be. And it's pretty special. I feel like that's kind of what I was put on this earth to do, to reconnect people with their Freddy.
That's a great purpose to have on this earth. As we get towards the end, I do want to. You're also
we'll talk about. We can go for another couple hours.
Yeah, we could. You co-authored a book with Steve Scott. Hey Tiger, you need to move your mark back. 9 words that changed the game of golf forever. About the legendary 1996 final U.S. Amateur round at Pumpkin Ridge in Oregon between Scott and Tiger Woods. So, how did that book come about? And for our listeners who don't know the story, how did that change the world of golf?
Great question. It's really funny how it came about, because the first time I meet Steve is on a Tuesday, Masters Week, at the Pig Pool at Doc's house. And I get introduced to him, and I'm like, you're the dude that chipped in on Tiger, and you went, and me and my buddy knew you were toast. And he's like, yeah. I went, how you doing? It was like it was so awkward meeting first time. And then the next time I meet him, he's actually doing a podcast for the Silver Silver Club Golfing Society, I think it's called. And he is interviewing me. He said, "You got so many great stories," and on and chat. So then that leads to him asking me to talk with his group at the Champions Club for their championship dinner. And so I do, and he said, "I don't want you up there on a podium or anything. I just want you sitting at the table, just telling stories, and I'll tell a few stories." So I'm doing that. We're just kind of in a round table, having dinner, telling stories. And so he starts talking about the U.S. Amateur, because someone was asking him about it in 1996. He's in the finals with Tiger. He's 5 up after 18. He's going to shoot 70 in the second 18. He's still going to lose, which is almost unheard of, or is unheard of to me. And on the 16th hole, he's 2 up with 3 to play, and Tiger's mark is right in his line, in Steve's line. So he asked him to move it 1 to the left, and he does. He lines it up with the tree like you do. And then Steve putts out, makes his putt. So Tiger's got to make his putt to win the hole. And Steve is walking off the green. He said he never looked at Tiger all day, never looked at him putting, didn't want to get caught in his game, didn't look at him swing. He just got a glance at the corner of his eye, and there's Tiger putting the ball down. He said he hadn't had time enough to move that mark back. So he just yells out, "Hey, Tiger, you need to move your mark back," casually. Tiger goes, "Oh." Doesn't even thank him. He just says, "Oh." He moves it back. Well, if he doesn't say that and putts from that mark, the unmoved mark, then Steve wins the hole, the match, the U.S. Amateur, and all the accolades that go with it.
Yeah.
And there's no way in hell Phil from Nike gives Tiger that $40 million contract on the spot after such a bonehead move. And then, tell him what his dad would have done with him.
Yeah.
Tell him where his confidence would have gone to do something so stupid. I think it would just, would he eventually be a great player? Of course he would. He had too much talent, but that changes the course of, it's like the Falcons losing the Super Bowl, being up 23, and I'm a Falcon fan. Oh, help me, Jesus. I think it just would change the game forever. If we can do a shameless plug, there's one in here. We can do it later.
Yeah. Well, that to me though. I left something out. So we're sitting there at dinner, and he's telling that he just told him to casually move the mark back, and I said, "Steve, if you don't tell him to do that, you win the U.S. Amateur. You know that, right?" He goes, "Oh, I guess you're right." And I was like, "I guess I'm right." He said, "I never really thought of it that way." I said, "What? You never thought of it that way?" So my brain just starts churning. I said, "There's a hell of a story here. Who would do that? I hope I would do that." But it wasn't like Tiger and he were buddy all day. Tiger didn't even speak to him all day. Yeah.
They don't even talk. Steve will say good shot, and Tiger will say thank you. He never once said good shot to Steve, never said a single word to him. So we're like he's your best friend.
Yeah.
It's like you're playing with you said don't use the word jackass, but you're playing with a jackass. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to help my buddy out. So would Ben Hogan done that? Hell no. Would Jack Nicklaus do that? Arnie probably would. Arnie would. Bobby Jones would. Because there's so many golfers, Gary Player wouldn't have done that. It'd be like, you're dumb butt. If you lose.
Well,
and the me of today, I don't know if I'd do it if I'm playing with a wank.
And, who knows until you're put in that situation. But that goes back to leadership, too. Good leadership's about integrity, and that shows real integrity to basically, throw the U.S. Amateur away when you could have had it.
Yeah, if he stays silent, because nobody else noticed it. He was the only person that noticed it.
Yeah.
If he stays silent, and he just happened to, I said, "What made you look?" And he's a spiritual guy, but he's not a really big religious guy.
Uh-huh.
I said, "So I know what God, or you don't believe it was God that made you look to the left for the first time, all day long, but you did." He said, I don't know. He said, "I was just drawn to it." But he says he has had many dreams, and the same dream, that he doesn't look left. And he just walks off the green to Christy, his caddy, and now his wife, puts the club in the bag, and Tiger puts out, and there's, there's, oh no, because somebody had spotted it before it's too late, or after it's too late. And Stevie won the U.S. Amateur. He said, "How?" And then he said, "That's no way to win the U.S. Amateur."
Yeah.
But by default. But you think that what makes, to me, golf such a beautiful game in that, football, somebody's beating you on a pass, but you can grab their jersey, interfere with them, do anything you can, take the penalty. Basketball, every sport you can think of except golf.
That's, to me, and I talk about this a lot, is that maintaining your character is part of good leadership, which is what sometimes drives me crazy when I look at politics. I was in politics for 9 years. I was in government. I was in government for 9 years, I'll say. But when I see people campaign, and I'm like, see their ads, and I'm like, that's not even what they're like, And I'm like, if you have to compromise your character to get ahead in business, in politics, or in golf, I think you're losing. I mean, I wouldn't, if I had to compromise my character to get ahead at anything, I don't want to do it, because once you've compromised your character, to me, how do you build that back?
You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big. I thought you did a great job when you were in office, by the way.
Well,
I think our downtown today is a great reflection of your beginnings and your follow-up and fruition. When I was growing up, and we'd call this Ghost Town, not downtown.
Yeah.
There was nothing down here. You jump-started that, man, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate
you saved
that.
our city, no joke.
Well,
I'm not blowing sunshine.
I appreciate that. Well, as we get towards then, before I ask you my tagline question, tell me about the pants.
The pants. I wish I could show them off. There's no way to really show them off, is there?
I don't think so, unless you want to stand on your seat.
I'd bust my butt. Okay, on the left pocket, there's a Augusta National logo. At the bottom cuff, they're V-cut. And they're also Western cut on the pocket, so you can put your hands in them and stick them out like that, like Arnold Palmer liked to do. And these were actually made for Arnold Palmer. They're Titleist. The pro, at the time, I'll let him remain nameless, thought if he could get Arnold Palmer to wear Augusta National pants, sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, back in those days, they own, the pros got the pro shop money, even the outdoor pro shops. So they made quite a few dollars. He thought, if I can get these in the pro shop and say, hey, Arnie wears these pants. So Arnie comes in on a Monday and gets the pants, puts them on, goes out and plays a practice round, and shoots 80. This is in the 70s, in his heyday. Worst round he's ever shot. Goes back in, says, I'm sorry, Dave, I ain't wearing these. He said, what happened? He said, I just shot 80 in these pants. They got the bad juju. So he goes back in Freddie's office where he had his other pants, drops trowel, hands them to Freddie, grabs his pants, puts them on, says, see ya. And my dad is sitting in the chair right next to Freddie's office. Right next to Freddie's desk. And Freddie went, Doc, you want some pants? He said, sure. So he threw him to Pop, and Pop got him, and he wore them for like 30 years, and then gave them to me a while back. And now I've got Arnie's pants.
That's a first.
That is a first. I know I start off my talks with saying, can I talk about my pants for a little bit? People go, what the hell is this? And that's how
I've never had a guest on my podcast wearing Arnold Palmer's pants. I can guarantee you that. You are a trendsetter and a groundbreaker, my friend. Well, as we start to draw to a close, what is, on a daily basis, what puts a smile on your face and brings joy to your heart?
Oh, wow.
And not just Arnie's pants.
Well, I was looking in my closet first, and then, no. My kids.
Yeah.
Seeing them, now they're 17 and 14, but they're still my babies, and my wife. I mean, family's everything,
Yeah.
As you know, it's just, not that, we're extremely wealthy or anything like that, but at the end of the day, it's if you don't have the love of family and that's everything.
Yep.
I grew up in a really big house, and we don't have a big house, and my wife goes, oh, we need more room, and I'm like, no, we don't. And I'm not ever moving again, but it's family. It's and seeing the joy in others and actually helping people, doing things for others, and I kind of put myself, even though my wife kind of thinks that some people might think that I put myself first, but you kind of put yourself first so you can put other people first, ahead of you. You got to put yourself in a position to be able to put people ahead of you, and that's, it's my kids.
That is awesome, man. Well, thank you for being a tremendous and very colorful guest. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, brother. Great to be on here.
Dropping the mic, and we are out.